This is the part that I'm terrible at. So thank you so much for being here. And I think you get now my excitement earlier. This is truly an accomplishment. And we become so accustomed to going and seeing professional things that maybe we don't quite realize. But if you can imagine yourself putting together a story like this of your life and telling it in this way, and the vulnerability and the courage that it takes to do that. So I just want to acknowledge Jennifer, Isabel, and Brad for doing that. I also want to acknowledge, which we just had a missed moment of our artist in residence, but Margaret Echeverria and G.W. Johnson, we call him Greg, have been our artists in residence for this program. And then Danny Ward has been our consulting director. And I just want you to know what that means. The man directed all these shows. So that was that transformed them yet again. And so really, just very quickly, and then I want to give people, I know some people are here because they're interested in the program, or, you maybe know some of the people here, just to talk about this because it is somewhat different. The journey of this was basically that each of the three, I call them the ones, came with an idea, just a seed of an idea, and sometimes not even really an idea, just kind of like there was like this yes, so that's interesting. People say, how do you decide to do that? Well, you don't decide with this. Something happens here. For most people that I talk to about this program, whether they joined or not, when I had the conversation with them, they cried. That was kind of across the board. They cried, or they had some kind of a physical reaction. It was coming from the yes came from a very deep place. And then their head tried to make sense over the months of why the fuck their body said yes. And I'll let them talk about that process. So about the first 3 months was really just finding the story. And then the second 3 months, that's when our artists in residence came in. We had a weekend, took them up to the Catskills, showed them the theater, scared the shit out of them, put them in a car together. They hadn't met, and took them up to the Catskills, where they started working on the scripts and formed, the scripts. And you can really tell that a script is a very different thing than just kind of telling you a story over dinner, right? And then for the last 3 months, that's when we brought in Danny, and then Margaret again had another retreat weekend, and then that's when the direction part started. So we finalized those scripts and got to the point. And I will also have you know that, so they saw the theater once at that retreat. That was back in July. They did not come here to this theater again until Tuesday. So they only worked with these, their set and lights and all of that, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then opened last night. So that's a feat that, not even professionals really pull off. And Danny's, been reminding me of that. So I wanted you to have a sense of just exactly kind of what went into this production. And then I guess just see if any of you have anything to say, or also if there's some questions. And if anybody asks a question, just repeat it. And we're going to pass the mic around because, we're little, just have one. So is there anyone who wanted to know anything, either about the program or from any of the performers? Yeah, Christina.
I'd love to hear, because you've referred to this a few times, about how everybody tried to quit at least once.
At least once.
I'm the queen. I'd love to hear a story from somebody about, okay, so you're in that moment where what pulled you back in? Like, what had you come back?
Good. Do you want to say?
Yeah.
And just repeat her question.
Okay. Yeah. So we're being asked about quitting and that how many times have we quit? I am the official highest quitter of all. I have quit the most times. And every time it's like, what the fuck have I done? Every step of the way, because I've never written a script. I've never shared my story this way. I've never been on a stage. I've never acted. All of it. All of it was new. All of it, every single time, was me taking a step into the anxiety and doing it anyway. And the things that helped me out were texting her, sometimes at 2 a.m, help, I want to quit. And she I just trust her. She doesn't care. She just goes, Isabel. And just so then there's nothing I can do. And journaling, processing, for me to do this show was about this year stepping out of my comfort zone all the time and just deciding to live in a really different way. I've just raised 3 children and lived a really wonderful, safe life. And this year I said I want to live differently. So just learning to be with the anxiety and be with even I want to quit, and then not taking it that so seriously, to go, yeah, that's just a thought. I can be with it because I want this more than I want the quitting. And so it's been extraordinary.
I think you also recognize the transformation that happens when you tell the truth, and you just couldn't resist it.
Yeah, did you see the look I just gave her? Yeah. I mean, it's true. She's right, but it's hard to tell the truth. It's hard to tell the truth. I had big vulnerability hangover this morning after doing the show last night, because it's we are showing ourselves so raw, so naked, and there's nothing protecting us from that. And it's liberating, right? That's the whole point, and it's liberating.
Did either of you want to talk about your quitting?
Yeah.
Or we
The only thing I would add into it, because of the quitting thing, which particularly my good friend Steve has heard particularly my good friend Steve has heard over and over and over and over again. But anyhow, the big thing I learned, and it really didn't come to fruition to me until this week, was it's always going to change. I don't want change, but it's always going to change. And you're never going to know what's coming next. And so we arrived yesterday, and Danny says, we have a full house, and we put 2 more rows in front here. And now all of a sudden we have a 5-foot stage instead of a 10-foot stage. So that was a big lesson for me that I hope I can take away. It's always going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The biggest thing for me was, what did I get myself into? I'm going to quit. I just can't do this. You get to that point where you remind yourself that you've been looking for a voice your entire life. And these stories, I've told these stories over and over again because they were looking for that voice, and they deserve a good one. And quitting is just doing what everything else has done to me my entire life and taking that voice away from me. And this was me giving myself that voice and that opportunity. Doesn't matter who hears it, I needed it for me. And quitting, I deprived myself of doing that for me. So that was what pulled me out of it numerous times.
Nice one. Awesome. Thank you. Other questions? Yeah.
Process from where it's a seed to paper to performing, how long that takes and the challenges from it.
Yeah, well, just on a on a practical scale, I keep saying 9 months. It's kind of like when we say that we're pregnant for 9 months, but really it's 10. So I think I'm doing the same thing with this. Yeah. So it's more like 8. So it's about 3 months for the seed to get to paper, 3 months to get the paper right, and then about 2 months on this kind of performance part. And then we're actually not done. We have another month after this. This is actually the most important part the next month. This is all really awesome. We're having a great time this weekend, but I guarantee you they're going to go on Monday, and if they think they said, what the fuck was I doing before? On Monday, it's like the tense just changes. What the fuck have I done? And now, what does it mean in my life? So the next month will be integration. And I think I'll let you guys talk about the challenges. What were the challenges if one pops out briefly? Yeah.
I literally waited till the last weekend. Our script was due on Monday. I worked that whole weekend. I holed myself in my house with my ex-husband and wrote the script, because the whole time, not only was there resistance to it, but I was like, who the hell wants to know my story? I've done this story. I'm a therapist. I've been processing it for 20 goddamn years. And so I just kept resisting. And I waited till the last weekend to do it, and she was not happy with me. Do you want to say?
For me, probably one of the biggest. I started really early. I was the opposite of Isabel. So I'm making trips to France and England. I'm like processing. I'm writing a script that's 4 hours long, a major feature film. Yeah. And Monica keeps cutting out all my favorite parts, and so it's not going to work. That's not going to work. So to me, my frustration was it seemed like it became so much more about the performance and less about my journey. And I went into this about my journey. I think I'm glad we're having this time afterwards because I think it'll all sink in that this was, in fact, the journey. But I resisted that all along because I had a story I wanted to tell, and it was different than this story. Not that this wasn't an important story. So it's that was a frustration for me.
It takes me 3 years to write a script. Yeah.
I need you to play along with the mic.
Okay. It takes me 3 years to write a script. So when Monica said that she was going to do this whole process in 9 months, I had to see what that was going to be about. Because I've never written a script in less than 3 years. It's just...
And Margaret's a professional actress, so.
Yeah.
For me, the first challenge came in thinking that even though I have a story to tell, everybody's heard it. How many people have the same statistics I do? How many people go through the same things I do? And at a certain point, it occurs to you that you need to tell your story because of that reason. Because there are so many people out there that have the same statistics we all do who don't tell their story. And they need to hear that that's okay. They need to hear that their story is important, even if they think they're the only ones, and even if they think it's nothing special. The second challenge for me came in juggling a real life. We didn't get to quit our jobs for 9 months. I didn't get to walk away from my family for 9 months. I didn't get to say, hey guys, could you not start any fights or need anything from me for a year? It doesn't work that way. And finding, as these guys, every meeting we were on was from a different room somewhere, from a grandparent's house to a hotel room to you got to fit it in. And finding, I have a running Instagram of everywhere my script has been. It's like, today we're on an airplane, today it's on a beach, today we're on a pillow. So finding a way inside yourself to go, this isn't important enough that I'm making room for it no matter where I am, was a huge challenge for me, but one that was really worth it in the end.
Yeah, Danny.
When I was brought in a few months ago and was told how this program was working and how they were doing these rehearsals, you've heard them say they're all in different places, and our rehearsals and meetings were done via web chat, sometimes as a group, sometimes one-on-ones, sometimes two-on-ones. So we were literally all over the country and finding these times to connect and work on this stuff. And directorially, that was a challenge, to having not been in the presence of these actors I'm working with. Oh, wait, they're not actors either. They've never been on stage before. So it was a really amazing process to see them come into themselves as performers and actors. You can all call yourself that now. You've been on stage in New York City and you did your own show, so that's real. And it was interesting to have to go back to kind of square one and step one, and using terminology and phrasing that I was something like, they don't know what I'm talking about, and they don't know what this means and this means. So how do I present this to people who haven't, been in this industry and haven't been in a theater? And 3 days ago when they walked out and I showed them what the lights were going to feel like, and all of them it took them about 20 minutes to open their eyes. It was just, and I mean, Brad, it was so funny because he was doing his show like and And it was really, I mean, I commend all three of you and just really going for it and trusting us. There was a lot of us just having to be like, guys, trust us and just do what we say this week. And really go for it. And they really did. And I mean, you experienced that. So I really, my hat is off to the three of you for jumping out there and trusting us that in this space, we really know what we're doing.
The funny thing is, Danny's talking about all these 2-on-1s, 1-on-1s, as though like we've been doing them for months. No, we did not have a final script till we went to Philadelphia. What was it? End of October? End of October. So we've had, I don't know, I think I had 2 sessions with you and Monica. We had, like, it's crazy. Like, they kicked our asses because there was no time. So Danny was like, Isabel, drop your defenses. You're protecting yourself in front of everyone. Like, and I'm like, I mean, it was just really, it was way shorter of a period than he's making it sound like we've been rehearsing for. It wasn't at all. So, and they had to kick our asses to do that because there was such little time, right?
Yeah.
That was the other big challenge, was the expedited process, was, you know, having to strip them down immediately of all defenses and all shields and all, you know, I'm going to politely tell this story the way I tell it when I'm at a dinner party, because this is not how you tell stories at a dinner party. And getting them out of the idea that acting is, well, especially with Isabel, that acting is acting. And one of my favorite conversations we had a handful of times was her just like, yeah, but I thought when I'm up there I'm supposed to be acting, and having to break it down to getting to the definition of what acting really is, which is being and telling the truth. And, you know, once they started to really grasp that, and they were really, I was so excited when I got to the first retreat, coming in as late as I was, knowing the timeline we were on. I was really nervous. I hadn't been sent the scripts before that weekend because they weren't done. And that weekend we sat down with what they had, and we were just like, okay, this weekend the writer is done, and forced them to just put the writer side of themselves away for the rest of the process, because at a certain point, you have to start prepping for doing it. You can rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite all your life. At a certain point, if you don't just tell the writer your job is done, it's never going to move forward. So having to really push through that and force them through that and really badger them through that.
I joined these guys up in the retreat. I think that was the first time I'd ever met everybody in July, and I said we didn't know each other at all. I think it's nobody did. Yeah, so a bunch of strangers getting together and living together for a long weekend. It was just, but it forces it. Oh, and we were being filmed by 5 people in a producer. So it was a very interesting situation. But I think what's so fascinating about this, for me, about this process, and it's something that I write and I perform myself, is that the process of getting down to what your story is. Like, what is my story, you know, and really having to weed it down and getting to the essence. And I think that the journey that you guys have been on about weeding that down has been so fascinating to watch. It's so gratifying for me to see all this confusion and, like, who cares? And I just sound like the first thing Isabella said was, who the hell wants to watch a woman whine about her eating disorder for half an hour, you know? And she's like, I'm so sick of it, you know? And then then we were like, okay, then don't do that, or come on stage with that as your story. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this talking about this, you know? And people being like, you know, realizing that, you know, what your story is and is not always what your story is. You know, what you think about yourself, and you start to look back and you start to uncover things. Like where your story ended up, Brad, was really so touching about realizing that your father had been hidden all these years. And you thought it was you, but it was actually him. You know, and I looked watching that today. I just thought that was so fascinating. And I think that at the end of the process, you know, after you get your story out and you perform it, it's so important to share it and perform it, because it really gets it out of you. And then it's out of you, and you can see it, and then it's not you anymore. You know, it's like you're not being ruled by this story that you're telling yourself all the time. So I think that's why it's so important to tell our stories, because it literally exercises it from us so that we can then look at it and let it go.
So this is the first time I've ever worked with a team in my life. I'm kind of a solo show in my life. And I think you're getting an idea of how amazing it's been to have a team. Yeah, you guys have been amazing. And I think at that retreat, when the ones got to see Margaret and Greg stand up and do some shows, previous work that they'd done. And then all of a sudden I saw them, they got it, and they were instantly both kind of terrified and excited that, they got it. So the side by side, and to me that was important. I really feel, because I'm a coach, so my role is, multifaceted for this. I'm the creator of the program, I'm the producer. I'm also the coach. And for me, I've just really found that we can do things with creativity that we can't do directly, and it's been interesting to have, a therapist. We have this conversation all the time. I am not a therapist. I can do things, say things, curse more, I don't know, go out with you, things that therapists can't do. And there has been something, the transformation from that particular combination of things, I think, has been magical. And they're right, it'll really hit them in the next month, almost more so than this weekend. I wanted to just see if there were any other questions. Yeah.
Just have one more, maybe
Yeah.
ignorant, but I don't really understand the artist in resident piece.
Yeah.
Like, who are they really? That's not named in the program.
Yeah.
How did they get to the process? Was it part of your creative vision? So,
Yeah, I'll say a little bit, and then I'll. So this is the first of this. I know it's like just the beginning. It feels like it's kind of taking on a life of its own. It's almost, it's now starting to be the boulder that rolls downhill, and I'm running after it. But I knew what I wanted to accomplish. I knew what I wanted to offer, and I knew where I wanted people to land. And I knew a lot of that from my own experience. I did my own solo show, but I did it kind of on my own, and then I did have people come in and help. And so I really looked and I kind of analyzed it. I was like, okay, well, what worked about the way I did it? What didn't work? If I was going to create something like this, like what would I have to put in place? And, and so it really evolved. And I always knew that I was going to bring in like consultants, directing. There were just different things that I wasn't going to try. There was no way I could do all of it. I didn't even want to. And then, I don't know, it was just this really strange, I know both Margaret and Greg. They're actually dear, dear friends of mine. And so I knew that I could trust them, and I knew that, there was like an element of just my own support. I mean, that's actually been a lot of this, is just like, how do I get support in this kind of somewhat massive undertaking? But I think there was something about that I didn't plan that evolved. I knew that Margaret has this amazing show that she'll be doing tonight called Finding Gavin, and she had really just lived this. It's a tragic and incredible story about losing her own son to SIDS 4 years ago, and so I knew she was just so fresh on doing this exact thing that I was having them do. And I just knew she had a perspective that, no one else has, at least in my world. And so that just felt invaluable. And then Greg, he's also performing tonight. Greg is a storyteller and a filmmaker and, things like that in his own right. And he has a capacity for storytelling and structure that I felt, so I felt my way through of like what was needed, and I just kind of happened to have people who I knew could bring that. And then Danny came through Margaret. Danny directed Margaret's show that she'll be doing tonight, Finding Gavin. And I saw Finding Gavin, and I got a glimpse of Danny's genius through that. And I have to admit, I feel really bad about this. So Danny is making his first feature film. I almost said Cincinnati. That's so wrong. Cleveland. Sorry for all the Ohio people in here. Sorry about that. Anyway, Danny's making his first feature film, and it didn't look like he was going to be available because his film was supposed to start, and it didn't start on time, and I felt a little bad about that because I wanted him so much that I think maybe I'm a little witchy. So we're all going to support Danny after tonight to get that film made. So that's a little of who they are, but I'll let them say something about what it's been for them to be involved. Yeah.
Well, my process, that 3-year-long process, Danny and I have done it once before, and that is where I write a ton of material. You know, like you think you write a ton of material?
No idea. Oh, okay.
I write a ton of material. It goes all over the place. It goes to the moon and back, and then I eventually send it to him. And there's a little like push pull that happens there. He's like, come on, let me see it. Not quite ready. And eventually he sees everything, and then we sit down together and we cut the show together. Like from that material, we put it together, and then we figure out what's missing. And so when Monica was doing this, and she's like, I'm looking for a director, it took me a while because this is a very precious commodity. And I wasn't willing right away to give it up and to share. Danny is my best friend, and also somebody I just want to create with for the rest of my life. And the thought of somebody stealing him from me is like, I will cut you. But it was obvious that I had to bring Danny on board because my process is so closely linked to a person who can really get into my stuff. Danny completely loses himself when he directs. It becomes all about the performer, and it becomes all about making the show good. And his ego, he leaves it in a paper bag outside the door. And I've never met another director who does that. So I had to bring him into this process in order for this to, I think, be the success that it is. So that's how this team came here to be with Monica.
So I guess it's sort of what the role is of the artist in residence. I guess it's sort of part tutor, part mentor, maybe not mentor, but not coaching, but not in the way Monica does. I guess we all have our own expertise. It kind of panned out that way. Margaret had the whole process, also acting, coming from acting experience, being a trained actor, and how to get at things and how to express them, different ways of expressing them. And mine was as a writer, I'll be focused on story and structure. I was always hammering that home. I was like, okay, what's the story? But what's the story? Every story's got an arc. What do you want? Story. It's got to have structure. It's not a story. So that Retreat Weekend was sort of my big contribution to the program, which was really sitting with each one of them and talking about, after listening to them talk and listening to their ideas and their scripts, to me like, okay, what structure could we give this? What could be your through line? Some of them changed, but all of them, I think, pretty much stayed what we decided. And then once you have that structure, once you know what you're going to be, then you can hang all this other stuff on it. But it was about revealing what makes a story and what the contents are. Because a lot of sometimes people can tell. I remember talking about the Lord of the Rings or something like that, and being like this. It's the end of the movie, and everyone's like, "Why is this going on?" It's like it goes on for like another half an hour after the end of the movie, and it's like you have this sense of like, why is this? Why am I so irritated? It's because the story's over. The ring went into the lava, and the story's over. Everything after that is just tying up loose ends. And the director couldn't stop. And so it's like that kind of thing. That's kind of my passion. Yeah. So from there on all the calls, that was where my ear was. And then it was great when the scripts were done, I had to bite my tongue, and that was because it was done. Danny's like, no, it's all about this is done.
I feel bad. We kept shutting down poor Greg once we turned this. He goes, "Could I just know?" No, you can't. So I want to thank you all for being here. I'll just say that we are preparing for next year. So the application window is open if you'd like to join the Power of One for 2016. This is a really good time to start talking to me about it. It is by application. I did talk to many people, and for just there have to be a lot of things that come together. It's obviously a big commitment. It's a big commitment that you'll quit 5, 10, 15, 20 times, and you'll still end up on this stage next year. So that's just an important thing to know about it. So bless you. So it's an application process. It's a lot of conversations, and it launches in April. So that sounds like there's time, but really this is kind of the time to get your ducks in a row. I think you heard everybody say they had to figure out their life around doing this, and so and also this is still being decided. We're not talking about it until December 11th. So there's a lot of things about next year that are still going to evolve. But there's one piece that does feel really exciting, which does look like there will also be a London component as well as, a UK component as well as a US component. So that's also pretty exciting. And other fun things. Oh, okay. Okay, one thing, because I know they have to pee. Hold on.
No, yeah, but the one piece I want to say, and I think both of you join me, is just how much this has changed my life in unexpected ways. And that's what, I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist for 20 years. I don't think I have ever seen something be as transformative as using art to heal. And I just can't believe how much my life has changed. And so I just really want to say that for any of you who are interested. It's like she knew it, but didn't know how our lives were going to change. You knew our lives were going to change. And so I wanted to just honor that. I want to honor you for putting this together and helping us change our lives so very deeply. And all of you, really, you have all been unbelievable for my life. You're on top 10 people who've changed my life. And so that's amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much again for being here.